Hello everybody! This is the second part of the video about moon landings, Apollo missions, and I'm going to share with you here a short conversation that Dale Harder, and you're going to get to meet him in a short while, that Dale Harder had with Swaruu of Erra. I think it was around 2020, about moon landings. And Dale Harder is an ex-NASA engineer, as he will explain himself in the introduction, and he was quite disappointed with the fact that we didn't go to the moon. So I'm going to share that conversation, and after that short conversation we're going to actually bring Dale Harder here on, and you'll get to meet him if you don't know him yet, because he did appear in my videos in the past, and he will tell you how he feels about this whole subject now, and maybe he can answer some of the doubts and questions. So enjoy the video, and I'm going to see you in a short while with Dale himself. Originally in English, 2019.
In light of this, it makes me most sad to think that humanity did not even accomplish that much. You see, I guess I had some sense of false pride in them. I was hoping.
They may have not accomplished that, but they have other things, many other things.
The general public is totally unaware of any of this. Even I was caught way off guard.
There are some hard facts we must defeat in order to understand this in a degree that is not taken on faith, nor on believing someone's word about this subject. Okay, the hard facts to defeat are these, among others. 1. Payload for the Saturn rocket. She could not lift the necessary payload. 2. Van Allen radiation belts. These are high-energy magnetic microwave, dense and thick areas in space that would have cooked not only the astronauts but the electronics as well. The LEM is unstable, impossible to fly without an advanced computer to course correct, pitch and yaw correct multiple times a second, perhaps hundreds of times a second. In 1969, they did not exist to that capacity, and were only starting to come in with the back then General Dynamics F-16A fly-by-wire, and effectively as a stability control system with the Lockheed F-117A late 80s. The LEM is impossible to fly.
Oh my. Please understand, little sister, I say nothing against you, but these facts are most distressing to me. Kind of breaks my heart for these poor souls. I did so hope that they were a little more advanced than that. So in number 1, not enough thrust to weight? Gee, I stood next to the Apollo 13 and I touched it the morning of liftoff. I have a picture of me with my hand on it leaning against it. It was massive at 363 feet high and 33 feet wide. I can hardly imagine not enough power. This was the most heavy lift rocket mankind had ever made.
Just look at the thing, the LEM. It's a washing machine. How can you control that? It pitches to one side, you manually correct, and then it will go over to the other side too much, and you counter-correct again, causing even more balance issues that will only get worse and worse until the thing crashes, as it always did during test flights. Armstrong was nearly killed. There even is a video about this incident. He ejected on time, but barely. I know it's impressive, and its roar was earth-shaking, but it was fireworks, not enough thrust, as most of it was wasted lifting itself.
Number 2 also distresses me. I thought that since the exposure time was short, that they may have been able to endure it. So it's not to be. Humanity is forever stuck here.
The exposure time was like days. It would have been lethal with like 10 minutes there.
I thought the belts only extended to about 1/3 the distance to the moon.
There are 2 sets of belts. At least the flight time through them should be like 2 days. Even at 1 day, it's too much. The radiation levels there are several times your microwave oven. And with information from us, and now from others also saying this, there is no moon as such to land on.
So we have lived lie after lie after lie. Yes, I do believe it is hollow, and a ship that was placed there. This is known, but not accepted by very many.
The surface is metal, and they would have not been permitted to get close. What people see is a hologram.
You see, I am only as good as the so-called facts that I have been given or allowed to work with. No man can know all the details. They made sure of that.
It's called compartmentalization. That's what people think, that it's too big a lie to cover up. It's not. Not having 99% of the people in NASA completely convinced about the landings. All you need is a handful of key people. Mission Control is unaware of this, completely believing it all happened. They are not acting. They are in with their heart and souls. We know because you are one example. But the astronauts are acting. It was easier to fake it than to solve these unsurmountable problems. We don't wish to come in here and disturb you. I'm even sorry for this. But this is only one more of a long series of things we may be disturbing or may have disturbing facts about.
I know, I understand. It does distress me, and I am sad for this, but not surprised. As I said, I simply had hoped that humanity had more going for it than that.
They have done a lot more, as Anneka said. Even space travel. But they are not telling the people about that. They would have to disclose their advanced technology, and they don't want people to have it. They have gone at least as far as Saturn with the SSP. They conquered another planet. I mean, militarily conquered another planet. Do you know what cognitive dissonance is?
I have heard the term, but in this context, no. I'm sorry, I do not understand.
A person can only understand reality to the level and to the degree of its understanding, never more. The more awareness someone has, the more it can handle. The person cannot understand something that demands having a context or base concepts to be able to relate the new information to and with. So, when people are confronted with information they do not understand, they enter into denial and go towards the frame of thought that is comforting for them. They run back to the known, blaming or seeing the new knowledge as rubbish. Their minds shut down. That's why there are so many haters and doubters about every subject. It's simply uncomfortable to them, so they will defend what was comfortable. This information we are sharing with you and in the videos has the peculiarity of triggering cognitive dissonance. So we are careful. We do not want to alter or to bother people, but in this case, we are somewhat in a hurry, as we feel our time here may be running out. So we are spitting everything out now. Not sure if this is a good idea or not. It's more about what we can do rather than what we should at this point. Hello, everybody. That was the conversation with Dale, and we have Dale Harder here on our show here himself. He hasn't been present in my channel for a while, but people are always asking, where is Dale? What is Dale doing? And he's around, he's here, still kicking and always active. Hello, Dale.
Hi, G. How are you? Good to see you.
Dale calls me G for Gosha.
Yeah, since the beginning.
Yeah, since the beginning. That's how it's been. Now, do a very, very short introduction, Dale, about who you are and your connection with NASA, please.
As most of you know from prior videos and so forth, I worked for NASA for over 12 years and Honeywell Aerospace for 7. And I've been involved with the space program and everything from the early 80s on. And so I've been privy to a lot of the different things, even present for certain launches and things. And in particular, I guess that we're going to discuss today some stuff about the Apollo moon landings, and especially the first landing with Armstrong and in 1969, and some talks that I had with little sister Swaruu regarding that. And so I think we're going to get into that a little bit.
Okay, and now someone on my channel actually asked about the level of the clearance you had in NASA. Can you say something about that?
Yes, I had various levels of clearance depending on the jobs that I was doing, and I did do many levels of jobs. I worked through many levels, and I had clearance for the top secret clearance for the Department of Defense, or DOD, for NASA, as well as for Honeywell Aerospace. And my primary functions at NASA were metrology, and which is the science of standards and calibration, if you will. And I held many levels of technology in electronics, and I worked into middle management and so forth. And but I also worked on the Agena and Atlas Centaur rocket systems and their propulsion systems, and I was also trained and worked on the space shuttle, and went to Houston and went to Kennedy. So, you know, my background is varied on that, and the top secret clearance came with those particular jobs.
When you say top secret, what exactly was top secret about what you were doing?
Some of it, the different technologies that were involved. Some of it was for particular applications that were involved. Some of it had to do with my background in lasers and their applications, but other than that, I can't go too much deeper.
Yeah, top secret, top secret. Okay, I understand. And now, before we go into the moon missions and how it was disappointing to you to hear that we didn't go to the moon, because you were there personally and you witnessed one of the takeoffs, from what I understand. Let's just clear to the people what your connection with Swaruu of Erra is, because you, as I always say, there are many contactees. There have been in the past, some of them more anonymous than others. Dale was one of them. He was actually first in touch with me. He wrote me an email. He saw our channel and he was very intrigued and interested. And with a long story short, I introduced Dale to the team and to Swaruu. And he was, for a while, he was in touch with Swaruu of Erra, especially, with whom he has a special connection. And that conversation about the moon, that was around, I think, 2019 or 2020 in the beginning, something around that time. Well, anyway, can you just say something very short about your connection with the Taygetans and Swaruu of Erra?
After you introduced me to the Taygetans, of course, they confirmed that I was a Taygetan, a starseed, and that I have been here, and I've known my entire life that I was here on a mission. But they gave me much more information and confirmed who I was, what I was, and what we were doing. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to work with them for a while. until today. So, but during the particular time with Swaruu 9, we had become very close, and we had many different conversations regarding different things. And so she came to me at one point, and we discussed quite in length, actually, regarding the Apollo moon landings, and especially the first one.
Yes, that's right. You participated in quite a few conversations, many conversations. Actually, one of them is going to be about Nazca lines very soon with Dor Kalel and Robert. That was a while back too, so I'm going to share that very soon. But let's just get into the Apollo moon missions then. Okay, well, as you could see from the conversation, it affected Dale deeply that it didn't happen. I would like you to explain maybe to the people, why did it affect you that much?
Well, this did occur, if I recall, it was about February of 2019 when this conversation took place, or at least one of them. And she actually came out and asked me what I knew about the moon landings and so forth. Well, obviously, I had been involved in that stuff quite a bit, working with it, working alongside the people and many of the different missions. In fact, as a young boy, I have a picture of several of myself standing next to Apollo 13 the morning of its launch, and I'm leaning with my hand against the rocket, and you can see the exhaust of the liquid oxygen venting above my head. And I always laugh and tell people, well, this is the reason the Apollo 13 blew up is because I touched it and jinxed it somehow. But my father was responsible for part of the engineering team for Terex General Motors that actually designed, developed, and built the tractor crawler, which moved the Apollo vehicles from the assembly building to the launch platform. And because he had the top secret clearance and so forth, they invited us to NASA to come for the launch. So that's how I got to be present for that. But the original one that we were talking about before, which would be Apollo 11, and the first lunar landing to take place in July of 1969. So as we got into that conversation, Swaruu asked me if I knew that much about it, and I told her what I knew, basically, and what I had covered technologically, and she said, do you think that we really went? And I said, well, I believe that we did, and she began to tell me and explain to me reasons that she said she didn't think that that was the case, that we had been given a lot of false information and that we never really went to the moon. And so we got much deeper into that. And I remember it affected me terribly, even as it does to this day. It bothers me. It's probably the only thing that Swaruu or any of the others have ever talked to me or told me that bothered me to such a degree, because I was terribly disappointed. I had hoped that these poor souls here had accomplished at least that much, but it wasn't to be. And so we got deeply involved in a lot of the discussion regarding how and why and where. And the deeper we got, the more incredulous it became to me. And even today, this still brings tears to my eyes, because I wanted to hope that humanity had at least gotten that far, but it just wasn't to be at that time. Now, I want to clarify this by saying that that is not the case today. The technology is much greater, much better, much more involved, much improvement and so forth. But in 1969, the technology that we had then, if you look at this and take it apart logically, carefully, without prejudice, you can see quite clearly that this just doesn't seem possible. So unless, and to think that myself, who's supposed to be semi-smart anyhow, along with all the other gifted and smart scientists of NASA, we were all fooled. We had no idea. And so I can say I believe that it is possible to keep secrets. I believe that it is possible for there to be conspiracies and things of this nature. And being who I am, what I am, and part of this entire thing, which is fortunate for me, that it seems normal. It seems right. It seems, and I don't believe that Sister Swaruu would have ever told me anything that was untrue. And she was quite compassionate, actually. When she told me these things and she saw how they affected me, she knew, and she felt bad. She said, I'm so sorry I've told you this. I should have never told you. I said, no, I need to know the truth. Everyone needs to know the truth. Now, you're going to find people that are going to argue with you or me from high hell to holy hell, no matter what. And they're going to say, nope, we absolutely went to the moon. Well, I would truly, truly love to believe you. But there is just too much information to say otherwise. There really is. And we could go on for hours, and I could give you my reasons and what I've looked into since that time. But without dragging it on forever.
Well, maybe do share what you looked into since that time.
Oh my, whether or not we do have a retro reflector up there, and we do have various instruments and things, and those can all be done remotely. They can all be done in many different ways. The technology existed to do that, barely, but looking into the depth and the width and the breadth of the Van Allen belts, the amount of radiation present in those, for those flimsy little rocket capsules that those guys traveled through that stuff for 2 to 2.5 days at a time, they would have been roasted. It would have been like sitting in a microwave oven minute by minute. And, so looking at that, looking at other aspects of the fact that another one that really blew my mind that she told me about was the weight to thrust ratio or thrust to weight ratio of the actual Saturn V. Sure, they made the rockets, they launched them, they actually went up a couple 100 miles, but were they capable of putting us into translunar orbits or getting us to the moon and back? No, they didn't have that kind of capability. Even the computing power with 4 to 8K minimum in a computer, it was nothing more than a glorified adding machine. Our telephones possess hundreds of times more power than they had in the computers in those things. And everything was done with a slide rule, a calculator, a pad and pencil and paper. I know because I did it. I was there. I had a really fancy, and still have it, slide rule, and that's how we got through college. That's what we used, so yeah, I wanted to say it was a real tribute to humanity. But if you look at it and really get through it logically, it just doesn't wash. It doesn't come out right. And that's the part that really bothers me. So if that is true, if this is the absolute truth, and I believe it to be, then what else has been kept from us? Well, you out there are smart enough to know the obvious answer to this is that there are ETs, there are interactions, there are things going on that we have never been told about and never will be. We're going to have to find that out for ourselves, and that's what's happening right now. That's what we're doing. We're going through it. Disclosure is being done by us, not by the government. Okay? So,
okay.
A little at a time.
Now, you mentioned that you saw one of the rockets go off and go up, right?
Oh yeah, I've been present at many launches.
So then the question is, did you see them return, or where did they go? The question is that many people I see ask, if they didn't go to the moon, where did they go?
Well, she even told me, she said that a lot of the launches, there were no astronauts on board. It was real easy to fake the telemetry and put them in another room, and everybody believed that they were on board and on the launch. And so the rockets actually just went into outer space, or they went into a low Earth orbit or otherwise, And then they were able to fake transponder codes and various things that would allow people to believe that they were on their way to the moon in a trajectory. Everybody's been through all of this, especially, believing that Stanley Kubrick and people like that had made movies and done things. There's been a lot of stuff that was done regarding that. Pardon me just a moment. I shed a few tears and my nose is still running, but it still, like I said, it deeply affects me to think about this stuff. Because I had so very much wanted us to be further ahead. And I do believe, and I know that humanity is much, much further ahead. We don't need rockets. That's all baloney. We've been way beyond that for 70 years. But the general public does not know about it, and they will not know about it until they're ready. So it's going to be up to the rest of us to push that to make it happen. It's just an amazing thing to think about, something that I have lived with ever since we talked about it.
Okay, now talking about general public and all, a question that would come from the general public is, of course, how could they fake such a huge production and so many times, as there's so many of these launches. There was a comment on my YouTube channel for someone who works in TV, in some sort of a network, and they are claiming that it's impossible to fake because there's so many people involved, and the producers and assistants, and that there will be just so many people fooled. And if it was fake, at some point, actually, one of these people could come out and do a whistleblowing job on this, say that it was fake, but no one is coming out. Apparently, I don't know, because I am not in the subject. How would you respond to that? Like, how is it possible to fake such a thing?
I would say, that we have to go back to 1969, and you've got to look at the level of technology that we truly had, or that was known, and the level of technology that we have today. And looking at it on a logarithmic scale, we have increased our knowledge, our capabilities, our technology by thousands of times compared to what it was back then. Would it be easy back then to maintain secrets, to do conspiracies, to hide things amongst people, just like the Manhattan Project, just like White Sands, just like a lot of the things that went on in all of those projects? It's very easy to compartmentalize and to hide information. It's very easy to keep things away from the public. I mean, up until 2012, 2013, or my mind forgets the exact date, but we wouldn't even acknowledge that Area 51 existed. It was still a myth, okay? But that's no more different than all the technology that we have used, or all the, shall I say, evidence for UFOs, evidence for Bigfoot, evidence for all the various things that is so amassed and so great, it's impossible to ignore. Okay, so yes, back then it was easy enough to fool a whole bunch of us because the compartmentalization, the ability to route signals, the ability to fake different things, et cetera, et cetera. Today, could they do that? Well, partly yes and partly no. The technology certainly is great enough to hide things, and it's certainly great enough to fake things, but there's always going to be somebody that might know the answer or try to come forward. And when they do, and when there are whistleblowers, one of two things happens. Either they blow the whistle for a while, or they try to blow the whistle and they mysteriously disappear or vanish. All right, and I have had several friends and several contacts, and I've had this happen to them. And so I take the chance when I shoot my mouth off, but I think that regardless of whether I'm right or wrong is irrelevant. The important thing is that you've got to look, you've got to think, you've got to dig under every rock, and you've got to find the answers yourself. This is my truth, but the public's truth or your own personal truth is something different. And still, each and every one of you needs to look for those answers. I don't think the contact with the Tegetans or between Gosia and myself or otherwise that any of this has ever been anything other than to ask you to take a look at what's being presented. So I say the same for this subject, especially of the moon landings and otherwise. Now, do we have the sheet to do it today? Yes, we do. But they're not telling us what they're doing. There's rocket launches every single day. Nobody knows about. So it's real easy to keep things on the QT.
Okay.
Hope I explained that well enough.
Yes. Yes. I have just two more questions very fast. If you can answer which of the arguments or the reasons why the moon landings were not possible from what Swaruu presented, which one of the reasons is like the strongest reason to you? Most appealing, most logical?
She gave a lot of reasons, and a lot of the reasons in themselves were compelling. But when you look at one, like I said, the thrust-to-weight ratio, the fact that there weren't men on the rockets at the times of the launch, a lot of times there were not even LEMs or lunar landers on board the rocket at the times of the launch. She had quoted about that. We talked about the fact that the retro reflector was there, and she said that as far as they knew, it wasn't really there because she wanted to know exactly what my background was in lasers and laser technology, and she knew that I was basically a world scientist regarding lasers and laser technology, which I've been in most of my life. And I told her what I knew and everything, and she said, well, do you think there's a laser reflector there? I said, I guess there's one there. How it got there, I can't tell you, whether or not the guys actually put it there or whether it was transported there or that kind of thing, because, you can go out there with the right equipment and reflect a laser off the moon. Did it happen later? I don't know. And then she talked about the fact that they'd have to sit in the Van Allen belts for as much as 2.5 days with an equivalent of being in a 1,000-watt microwave oven minute by minute for that amount of time. And those capsules were very thin materials. In the lunar lander, for example, some of that, the walls of that craft were actually about twice as thick as a little piece of aluminum foil that you use for cooking. So in certain areas where structural integrity was not needed to reduce weight, they used extremely thin materials. Now, if you're sitting in all kinds of radiation fields in a super thin craft, you have absolutely no protection whatsoever, and a spacesuit certainly isn't going to cut it for you. So we've got to look at that. And then people say, well, they left the Earth and they traveled around the curvature of the Earth, and it exited in such a way that they passed through the Van Allen field. They can pass through the beginning stages, but they can't get through all of the separate fields. There's several fields, several rings beside the two main Allen belts. And the reverberation of the radiation that is there is just unbelievably intense. So we didn't have the ability to shield ourselves from those kind of things at that time. And I don't see how that would be possible. The computing power is another one, and so forth. There were mistakes made. And a lot of people go, oh, the flag waving in the breeze. Well, that's utterly ridiculous. All you had to do was shake the pole and the flag would wave and it would look like it was in the air. That had nothing to do with anything. But some of the photographs were incorrect. Some of the angles of the sun were incorrect. And one of the things that truly bothers me is the fact that they say now that they cannot find the original tapes for the lunar landing. Well, that really bugs the daylights out of me. Now, there have been some well-known scientists that have come forth and said, well, at the time, tapes were very expensive, they were hard to get, and so they re-recorded over them. And my response to that is, here we are talking about the most significant thing that humanity has ever done, and you're going to record over those tapes? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so here we are working with stone knives and bear skins. We accomplished this huge task, and we erased it. Why? Oh, because we needed the tapes for something else. So I again, there's more to it, go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
those are the main points that just don't add up. And there's a lot more. You can start digging and you'll find this stuff yourself.
Did you meet
So,
any of the astronauts?
I have met many of these. I was present in launch control when we lost the Challenger in '86. We knew that the astronauts were alive until they hit the ground. We knew a whole lot of different things. We were under orders from the White House to launch. We had no choice. And of course, they needed somebody to blame all of it on. So Morton Thackall took the brunt. But there was a lot of things that were going on at that particular time, and I won't get into that. Too much conspiracy theory stuff.
Did any of them, I don't know, act suspicious or something that you caught that was off about them at any point?
No, nothing that was really off about the astronauts. Neil Armstrong had come to NASA and so forth. I even met Wernher von Braun twice in my life. And one of the comments that you'll find, especially on looking at the tapes from the men, especially after they came back from the moon, they're all sitting around giving their first conference, if you will, or talking to the public and to the reporters and so forth. These guys looked like they were frightened to death. They were sullen. They were quiet. They kept looking down. These did not look like men that had just achieved one of the greatest things in the history of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they looked like they wanted to cry, like they wanted to hide and crawl under a table. They looked like they had seen ghosts, and I've looked at these tapes over and over. I've looked at other stuff that is available in NASA archives. It just doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good grief. Some of us, when I first learned to ride a bicycle, I was so ecstatic I couldn't stand it. Okay, and here's guys who've done the greatest thing that has ever happened in the last 1,000 years, and they were like, yeah, well, okay.
Okay. Dale, two more questions, and that's that. I have a question about your friends who you used to work with. Have you talked to them about this, about your new outlook on this? Did you get into fights? Were you able to convince them?
I've mentioned it to a few, but no, there's never been any fights or anything over it. Some of them just kind of roll their eyes and say, well, maybe. Excuse me. And others, have said, well, they found some of the points interesting. They'd look into it, but nobody's really come back to me or said anything in particular about it, I think that it has been pushed on us and brainwashed into us so much that we absolutely, totally believe, as I did, that this thing really happened. And so most people just utterly accept it, and to try and pick it apart or try and not accept it is just against the grain, and they can't handle it. I know, like I said, it took me a great deal of time. The only reason that I could even deal with any of this is because I know that Swaruu and the team and all the rest of the Tegetans and everybody that we're part of and that we've been in contact with, I don't believe for one moment that they would lie to us about these kind of things. As long as we talk to them, and as many years as this contact has been going on, that's just not their MO. And they've never asked for anything, never asked us to do anything for them. We have done all of this because we asked them to, because we asked to give this information to the public. So it wasn't like, and nobody's making a huge amount of money on any of this or anything, so we don't sell books, we don't sell tapes. I don't, you don't. There's nothing here except genuine information given out of love and compassion. So I don't see the point in taking that away. What would be the point in telling everyone that didn't happen if it really didn't or did happen? It doesn't change anything. So I don't see, there's no motivation from the Tibetans or otherwise to tell us it didn't happen.
Yes, and this
and
is...
I don't believe she shared that with anyone other than myself and you. Maybe Robert.
Well, of course, Robert, yes, because I just published a video actually that was taken from Robert's transcript, because I did not have this conversation with Swaruu. Robert had that conversation. So the first part of this series about the moon is actually a conversation with Robert. And actually what you are talking about here is very important, that there was no motivation, because there was actually a comment under the first part of this video, and someone said, I feel there is an agenda here. This is some kind of a Russian KGB agency, you know, plotting or something. You have to understand that this information I never shared even until now, and they never like rushed me to do this. Robert shared it in 2008 and 19 or 18, I don't remember, but I never translated it. Dale had a conversation in 2019 or 20, somewhere around that time. They never came to me, Gosha, come on, go and publish this. We need you to publish this. They never cared. Like, if you publish this, go ahead. If you don't publish it, well, it's okay too. They never force us or impose that on us. So, for example, the decision of publishing it now, it came from me because I'm going through older material to share, and that's what I decided to publish at this point. But I was never rushed by them to do this, so you can clearly see there is no agenda from them on their part about this. So that's just that.
No, never asked or given the information. In fact, the information that was given to Robert, myself, and that you have become part of, I don't believe there was any reason that she never said, oh, we want you to publish this. It was strictly conversation between us.
Yeah.
And she in particularly got the conversations going, and there were more than one, with me regarding this because of my technical nature, because of what I know of them and what I remember of them, and also what I did here. And so she wanted to compare notes, but it was never, oh, you got to tell everybody about this.
Yeah.
And when you look at this and say agenda, what possible agenda could this serve? We don't want to discredit anyone. We want to just say, hey, you got to look at this and take it for what it is. Now, was there an agenda back then? Yeah, there was an agenda back then, and yes, and there was definitely something going on. But if you remember, right after we got into this, before Kennedy was assassinated, he had decided he was going to pair the space programs with Russia and the United States. And just before that happened, he was, unfortunately assassinated. Somebody or something didn't want us to join forces. So if there was any agenda at all, it would have been as far as that was concerned. And then, you can get into all the conspiracy theory and this and that. But there's definitely no agenda, nor do Gosia or I have any agenda in sharing this with you.
Mm-hmm.
We simply want you to know this is what we were told and how deeply, and still how deeply, this affects me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another point here is that I shared the conversation that Robert had, but you never shared, because what I'm seeing here, I wasn't even sure about this myself, that you had your own individual chats about this with Swaruu. You never shared that, and she never told you, Dave, go ahead and share that, or send it to Gosha and she will share it. No, it was your private chat. So but my point with this is what I always say to the people, that they have conversations with people that never reach the public, and that just proves that there's no agenda here, because no one is there telling those people, go ahead and publish this, you have to publish this. Those conversations remain anonymous, most of them. So it just proves this whole no agenda thing. And Yes?
Yeah, and as I said, any agenda, what agenda could we possibly put forth? We can't, the past is the past. We can state what we've said or what we know, but it serves no agenda. If anything, it hurts me. It embarrasses me. It makes me feel bad because I was as easily duped as the rest. And I it's one thing for you as the public to hear me or others say this, but it's another thing, and you have to look at this from my point of view. I spent more than 20 years of my life, day in and day out, working on this stuff. I was devoted to it. I believed it. And here I am telling you what I'm telling you. Now, put yourself in my shoes, and you can understand just how unhappy this makes me, how unpleasant this information is. But it did happen. It is the truth as it happened to me, as it happened to us as a group. So, we have no agenda at all. Never have, never will. Our only purpose, our only agenda, if you will, is to give you the information that was freely given us. That's it. Nothing else.
Thank you, Dale. And just to finish this off, I want to link to what you just said now, that you are still unhappy about this. This is my final question to you. How do you feel about this now? I mean, were you able to integrate this now? Do you feel liberated in a way, perhaps, or you are still miserable about this?
No, I do not feel liberated.
No.
There is no liberation. This is, as I said, probably one of the most horrendous things I've ever had to deal with. It still affects me today as it did then. It was incredulous information. I was literally knocked off my chair, and I shed tears then, and I still shed them. And it's not because, Dale was duped. It's because I feel bad for humanity. I feel bad for all the souls involved. I feel bad for us here having to deal with this. And if it is absolutely true, and I believe it to be, but that's for the rest of you to decide, if it is true, then what have we endured? What other things do we not know? And then you look back and you wonder why sometimes the T's get upset and they throw their hands up and say, humanity just isn't ready. We're not listening, okay? We're not listening, and I understand why. Okay, so all I can say to the rest of you out there is open your eyes, open your hearts. Don't be so quick to judge the messenger. The messenger is nothing. I am nothing. I can only tell you what we know. And if it changed for the better, suppose we proved it wrong, and we did, and we went, then so much the better. Then I'm happy for humanity's sake, but not for my own. Okay?
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much, Dale, for this chat. How are you in general? Just how are you generally? People are asking how is Dale doing?
Oh, I've had my ups and downs. I've had my ups and downs, and I've had some health issues to face and everything, which I was told would happen to me. But on the good point, since most of you have seen me or talked to me, I have lost over 90 pounds.
I can see that.
I had gotten very heavy for a while. I got very, very sick. All of these things were told to me by Swaruu and others what was going to happen, and they did, and they do. But I'm working very hard to retain or to get back that health. I've got another, say, 80 pounds that I'd like to lose and get better on my health. But the fight, the program, the hopes and continuations with the Tagetans and communications, if they wish, I'm here, as with you. We wait for them, and we know that they will be back at some point. And even if they're not, we can still deal with that too. The point is that we're here to do our best. I am anyway, to serve and to help. That's what my mission has been and always has been since I came. So that won't change. But as always, I tell you, G, I send my love and hugs to you always, and I'm always in the background lurking around, especially when you're doing your lives and otherwise. I may not say too much. But that's not my point to. But if anyone needs to ask a question, they can. So I answer the best I know how, and I say to the rest of you, until the next time, till we meet again.
Till the next time.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Dale, for coming. Until the next time, until we meet again. I like this phrase. I'm gonna use it now. Until we meet again.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I'm running out of phrases when how to end my videos. This is a good one.
Right.
Until
Right.
we meet again. Okay, Dale, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And I will see you in the next video, of course. Until we meet again. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Gozu.